And without further ado, we'll get this rolling here. Um, my name is Jack Malafronte. I am a sports physical therapist and athletic trainer. I work for the New England Revolution, and I am here representing the American Academy of Sports Physical Therapy Specialization Committee. And we are hosting, this is our annual Sports PT Residency webinar. This is the 6th year we've done this. And we have a great cast of panelists tonight telling you to hopefully tell you about their experience during residency as a physical therapist and kind of maybe what they're on to now if they've graduated from their program. Hopefully giving you all in the audience nice perspective about what types of programs exist across the country, and if a certain program or a certain type of program might be right for you, or if residency itself might be right for you. Um, so without further ado, we'll get into the introductions. I guess first, before we do introductions, let me explain how the whole webinar will work. We'll be tight, done at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I never went over 6 years, so hold me to that. We'll do introductions for all the panelists. Okay, everyone will have a chance to introduce themselves and where they did their residency and a little bit about their program and themselves. Then we'll do a little structured Q&A where I will direct questions to all the panelists so you guys in the audience can all hear about the panelists' programs and their experiences. And then we should have about 20 minutes at the end where we'll do an audience Q&A. So feel free to use the chat feature. You can start firing away questions right now if you'd like, but we won't get to them till the end of the webinar. And we'll answer any questions that you possibly have in the time that we have about sports PT residency programs. The panelists will hopefully be engaging with you also in the chat. So if you have a specific question for an audience or for a panelist about their program or about their experience, if it doesn't make it into the webinar, they can certainly engage with you in the chat and feel free to communicate there. You will also all in the audience receive a contact sheet for all the panelists so that you can reach out to them further if you have more questions after the webinar. And I would just like to also thank the American Academy of Sports Physical Therapy, the Specialization Committee, Abby Miesenheimer, who is here with me tonight, co-tag teaming this event for the 3rd or 4th year. Without the folks behind this webinar, this would not be possible. So let's get rocking and rolling. I'm just going to go across my screen, let you guys introduce yourselves. Let's send it to Parker first.
Hello, my name's Parker. Parker Jones, sports physical therapist as well. I did the Stanford Health and University of South Dakota sports residency.
Thank you, Parker. Let's go down to Alex.
Hi guys, my name is Alex Turnock. I did my sports residency at Brooks Rehabilitation in Jacksonville, Florida.
And Ruby.
Hi everyone, I'm Ruby Bajaj. I am a sports physical therapist and I did my residency with Evidence in Motion. Actually, it's throughout the United States.
Where were you specifically located, Ruby?
I'm in San Diego, California.
Awesome. Michael.
Hi everyone, my name is Michael Fiorante. I did my sports residency at Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, Virginia.
And Nina.
Hi, my name is Nina Hendler. I did my sports residency at Midwest Orthopedics at Rush out in Chicago.
Thank you, Nina. Let's go down to Kaylee.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kaylee Blair. I did my sports residency at the University of Mississippi Medical Center, and that's located in Jackson, Mississippi, but kind of had some different opportunities to travel within the state of Mississippi.
Very cool. Next up, I have Marcus.
Hi, everyone. I am Marcus Castro. I work at Advent Health. That's also where I did my residency program, and that's located in Orlando in Central Florida.
Let's shift up the East Coast. Let's go to Ryan in New York.
Hey everyone, I'm Ryan Kennelly. Last year I did my sports physical therapy residency with Hospital for Special Surgery in New York City, and I'm currently still employed by HSS.
Thank you, Ryan. And second to last, Jessica, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jessica. I did my residency at the University of Miami in Florida.
And last but certainly not least, let's go to Kobe at Ohio State.
Hey everyone, my name is Kobe Contreras, and I'm currently one of the senior sports residents at the Ohio State University.
All right, thank you guys all so much. That was probably the fastest intro that we've ever done on this webinar. So I think I scared the panelists a little bit about having to be efficient with their time. But let's get right into it. So Ryan, I want to ask you, you did your residency at HSS. You're still working there. Obviously, they have very, very well-known, nationwide, international known surgeons. So can you speak to me a little bit about the surgery and the physician shadowing and observation that you were able to do in residency, and also how that helped you develop as a physical therapist?
Yeah, so in our program, we have two different sports residents. I was at the main campus on the Upper East Side in Manhattan. The other resident is up in Westchester County at the HSS location up there. You get a lot of surgical observation, both with these surgeons during their clinical hours, seeing patients, as well as in the operating room. I think I was in the OR roughly once a month. Grand total, probably watched about 40 to 50 surgeries for the year, ranging, all orthopedic, shoulder, hip, knee, foot and ankle. Probably watched about 20 different ACL surgeries alone. But these surgeons are, they're really special humans. They're very smart individuals, and they do take physical therapy very seriously. Like, I was a little surprised on, a few different times these surgeons, first time really meeting them, they'd be asking me, my opinion on things like when they're with patients, like during clinical hours. And they are very open to physical therapy, which was really cool. Like even during OR, they'd be kind of bringing me over as close as I could get to the surgery, kind of trying to show me different techniques of what they might be doing. So I think it really helps seeing some of these surgeries. You get an idea, sticking with ACLs, you come in, maybe that someone has a patella tendon graft and they're kind of pointing to some spots on their knees, like, it kind of really hurts right here. And you have an idea of like, okay, well, that's probably where they drill the bone tunnel to get the graft through. So I think it kind of gives you a better understanding of what some of these patients go through in the OR if you've never had that experience before. And I should also say that the surgeons are really great from a collaboration standpoint. They're very open to feedback, and the fact they want you reaching out to them as often as possible, whether to themselves or their physician assistants, just so everyone's on the same page. And, I think what's really cool is they really appreciate physical therapy at HSS.
Thank you, Ryan. That was great. Super insightful. And I'm going to kind of dovetail off that. Nina, so I know that obviously at Midwest Orthopedics at Rush, similar experience, I'm sure, with the surgeon collaboration and the physician shadowing. Spin the question a little bit. Can you speak about how the experience of communicating with surgeons and physicians and how helpful that was for you when you started residency to where you are now in terms of your comfort level in interacting with them, whether it's text, phone call, in person, about patients?
Sure. Yeah. So we are located where the residency is housed. We're in the same building, just a couple floors below the surgeons. So that first and foremost makes it very easy, even if you have a question while the patient's in clinic, to run upstairs and ask them. So that makes connecting easy even in person. And we also had opportunities to shadow both in the OR and also just in their clinical days. So being able to, again, make connections with them and learn from them. They're very happy to have us there. And even same thing that was mentioned earlier, while they're seeing patients, kind of asking me while I was in the room, like any suggestions for this patient or any thoughts on, their care so far and that kind of stuff. So our docs definitely share the same sentiment, and that they're very pleased with physical therapy, and they're really excited to have us in the same building, in the same room. And then in terms of other opportunities to connect, we're, again, just a couple floors below them, but even via email, text message, whatever it is, they're quick to respond no matter kind of what we need from them. And even through other opportunities that we had through the residency, like going to spring training, many of the doctors there, obviously, we see every day as well. So Dr. Verma is being out there. And then Dr. Cole, who some of you may have heard of, is also one of the He's the head physician for the Bulls. So having those resources available to us as well are super kind of convenient and helpful just to talk about our cases and what they might want us to do with the patients. And I think from beginning to end, obviously it can be intimidating coming into that environment with such high performers and such great doctors, but their openness and kind of willingness to work with us and communicate with us, I think made it a lot easier, along with just learning kind of their personalities and their preferences. But I think overall it was a very welcoming experience, and they're very open to collaborating with us.
That's awesome, and that's great to hear. I remember when I was a resident how intimidating physician communications can be at times. So to have that structured opportunity to do that in a welcoming environment is so great as part of an opportunity in a residency program. I want to shift gears a little bit. We'll talk college sports because I feel like, this is a big part of sports residency programs. A lot of programs have relationships with college sports. Kobe, I want to ask you specifically, what was it like having rugby as your assignment at Ohio State for that first year? And talk about the benefits of basically trial by fire for probably the number one acute injury sport, at least from like an on-field management, certainly.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that was one of the biggest things that drew me to Ohio State was that with our program, it's 18 months, and that first year you're embedded with Ohio State's rugby team. So it's a really cool opportunity because you get to truly be hands-on and be with that team specifically. You get to travel with them, and then you get to get your hands dirty as you can possibly get in sports. So I think we were the first ones on the field there. We're making all this return to play decisions and things like that, talking to physicians and things like of that nature. So that was super beneficial from my perspective to really actually again get hands-on experience and really make calls that I am hopefully going to be able to get to do later on in my career. But I think that set us up really well in terms of how the last 6 months of our residency is all within Ohio State athletics. So getting to be involved with football and all other Olympic sports has been really beneficial. I think that year-long experience with rugby really prepared us to be beneficial and actually contribute once we got into that athletic training room and actually, again, just be of help and be comfortable in that setting. So, again, I can't say enough good things about rugby. If you haven't seen anything about rugby, it doesn't matter. We didn't know a dang thing either, but again, it's trial by fire and you learn a lot. So, can't say enough good things.
Awesome. Thank you, Kobe. Why don't you just quickly share, how do you guys manage acute injuries like during the gameplay? Because for maybe the audience members who don't know how rugby works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so rugby's insane, but again, it's such a cool sport. So if a player goes down, the play can the play can continue, so they won't stop the thing. So you have to decide when it's safe to run out there. So you can be running out there and be dodging players that are running around you and still playing. So that's a really cool, unique aspect of that. But if an injury is serious enough, if there's a broken bone, or if one of the sirs think there's a head injury, they will stop the play. But other than that, it's a free for all, but it's awesome.
That's like my favorite thing about rugby for sure, is the fact that you guys run on the pitch when the game is still going on at times. Amazing. Parker, I want to shift gears to you a little bit, still talking D1 sports or collegiate sports, but you had the opportunity with South Dakota Athletics to travel, actually. So can you speak about what that potentially contributed to your experience? So not only are you treating in the athletic training room, treating post-ops, maybe dealing with the day-to-day, but you actually got to be a fully incorporated part of the sports medicine team, travel, I'm sure packing, things like that. Can you just speak to that experience?
Yeah, so I think one of the kind of unique things about University of South Dakota's residency program is kind of the opportunity to travel with the football team throughout the season and be heavily involved with their athletic trainers. I had a pretty lucky experience where we only had 2 athletic trainers for the entire season. So for a 100-man roster, when I was around, I was very busy, constantly getting to know the players, all of that. Then with traveling, obviously whether it was bus trips or plane rides, we would do all their kind of pregame treatments, morning of treatments, get the kind of tape situated, all of that, as well as pretty much act like an athletic trainer on the sideline of football games. With that, I mean, there were a couple occasions, even when like the athletic trainers only having two were kind of doing something else, and I would be the first kind of onto the field if a player went down, which was really unique, and you kind of learn very quickly how to act, kind of all of those sort of things, and what that environment feels like. For me, one of the big things was being able to experience all of that. I want to end up kind of full-time in collegiate sports. So I made sure I kind of tried to pick a program that fit that. And University of South Dakota, you really get full access to their athletes, to any and all sports, football being the primary. But it was just a really cool experience.
Thank you. That's amazing. I don't think from a football standpoint that many residency programs have the residents traveling. So that's really awesome. And I think there's so much to the athletic training portion or the acute portion that you don't get if you're not like on the road with the team and you're dealing with the packing and the administrative type things. So I think that's a great experience, especially if that's what you want to do going forward. Jessica, can you speak about your experience at Miami and specifically the opportunity that you had in the weight room to be modifying and implementing activity regressions and progressions to the student athletes within University of Miami athletics?
Definitely. So similarly to Parker, I think the Miami residency does a really good job of immersing you into college athletics. I was predominantly with football as well, but got to experience pretty much any sport that I wanted to. All the athletic trainers were very open to the residents being there and being a part of the games and everything like that. So that was really awesome. Everyone's super welcoming to make it the experience you want it. Specifically, something that stood out for me, just because I do have the HEC background, was more experience in the weight room. So during season, myself and the other resident, as well as the director, it was all hands on deck managing all those post-op guys. So splitting up between someone running the pit, someone running some on-field running, and then someone helping within like more of those acute non-sweat periods for some of the post-op guys, and kind of switching around and getting a variety of experiences there. So for me, getting the opportunity to manage, lead, and also write and contribute in that sense to injury lifts and conditioning for guys, and finding ways to make and maximize what they can do when they are limited, was something that was really stood out about this program. And then moving towards the spring, when they were doing spring lifting and conditioning, we had the opportunity every morning to be in for every lift, and having actually just really modifying the guys for that specific injury or that specific lift that they were doing. So they were still a part of the team and getting to make them be a part of it as much as they could, but finding ways to, again, make it something that is maximizing what they can do while they are limited. So that was a really cool thing about Miami for me.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, that's really physical therapy at the continuum of care, which is not something that we all often get to do depending on our setting. But sometimes it's in a clinic and it's you emailing the strength and conditioning coach, or you telling the athlete their restrictions or modifications, to actually be involved with that, from treating to then modifications, the progression regression, I think is really, really cool. Obviously the benefit of Division I sports, certainly. Kaylee, I want to ask you the last D1 sports type question. I'm sure there'll be more on the back end, but you mentioned in our pre-call the progression of your program. You guys are opening, or you're getting a third location. So you're going to have a resident at Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Jackson State, and then you're all going to have an NFL preseason experience. So can you just speak about that? I think that's really cool. But then also, I'm curious, how much do you guys interact being kind of located all over the state of Mississippi?
Yeah. So it was a little bit different for me this past year, since I started at Jackson State, transitioned to Ole Miss, and then ended at the Saints. Whereas this next year, actually this current year we're in, we actually have 3 residents. So essentially, like you had just said, there's one at Ole Miss, one place at Mississippi State, one at Jackson State. And so they're there for the like full school year. So you're doing football with each of those teams. You're traveling with each of those teams. Once basketball season and winter sports roll around, you're kind of transitioning into those things too. Each I guess site has a clinic as well that you're in a couple afternoons a week. So like you are still seeing athletes and even sometimes just ortho patients through those clinics as well. But as far as interaction that they have, there are with our didactic curriculum, like I think it's either weekly or like every other week meetings that each of the residents kind of come together and they're talking over the content. Also just kind of picking each other's brains on different cases, and all the mentors as well in the program are like super involved. And so that's a really good aspect that I think helps kind of everyone kind of tie together. And with the affiliations in the NFL, each of those is at the end as well. And so you do your full year and then you have about 6 to 8 weeks with an NFL team. And so each of those opportunities is a really good way to just kind of cap off your residency, and you're seeing everything you've learned from collegiate sports and then putting it into practice in pro and seeing kind of how they take on that as well. Yeah, I would say that's the main kind of aspects of it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kaylee. Marcus, can you speak a little bit about, so you guys have the Innovation Center down there, I think where you spend about half your time during the week, but you guys get the 3D motion capture lab, you have biomechanists working there. Can you talk about your experience kind of learning about 3D motion capture and then how you were able to integrate that into your patient care? What kind of protocols are you doing? What kind of things are you guys testing in that 3D motion capture lab?
Yeah, absolutely. So this just got built up recently over at Advent Health and Innovation Tower. Right now they have a like 3D motion analysis for running as well as jumping, cutting, landing athletes. And the great thing about it for us on a rehab side is that both sections right now are run by physical therapists. So it's people that have been treating athletes for years and now they're taking their skill set and applying it elsewhere. So what we can do is, let's say I have an athlete, 6 months post-op ACL, and I'm wondering, okay, how confident do I feel getting them back to sport? And athletes are pretty high level; they can easily compensate for certain things that might not see to the eye. So send them to the lab for a regular re-eval, and then you'll get back a bunch of data points from, again, like I said, physical therapists who, even if you can't understand the data, they will work with you in breaking it down, telling you what things mean, whether it be like joint angles, force production, contact times, things like that. And then, all right, where do you want to now focus on progression before you send them back to sport? Try to reduce that re-tear rate, for example. The other thing they're working on very soon is getting like a pitching mound there. So they can have pitchers in there throwing, again, working on mechanics and really optimizing them as best we can before sending them back. We know everyone's different. No one's going to be perfect, but can we get them as best as possible before we say, yeah, they're ready?
That's amazing. That's not an opportunity that there's not a lot of places that have those motion capture types of labs. To be able to experience that in residency, I think is so insightful. It may not be what you have going forward in your career, but to know that those opportunities are available and we have ways to assess athletes like that to that level of detail, I think is super eye-opening. Ruby, you did the EMI program, which I think is probably one of the more unique like program setups. So I think what would be insightful to the audience, I think, to just speak about the way EMI is set up, why that was a good opportunity for you, and how you think that is going to advance your career as a sports physical therapist.
Yeah, absolutely. So with Evidence in Motion, I'm not a typical sports physical therapist in general. I graduated in 2006 from Loma Linda, and I did not do sports for 16 years. I went through cancer, went through chemo, all that stuff, and then when I was in the clear, I decided to come back into sports, and I was working with sports about 85% of my patients were sports. But going in 16 years later, it brought up something daunting to me, which was I am not where I want to be, because life moved on, sports moved on, rehab went forward, amazingly forward. People today are phenomenal at what they do, and I wanted to be able to provide that excellence to my patients. So Evidence in Motion provided me the luxury of being at home. I'm a mom of two. My daughter was headed to college at that time, and my son is 13. So it afforded me that opportunity to stay at home, in-house, have my full income with the current place I was at, and still be able to create mentorship or utilize the mentorship that they offered, get the hands-on skill set that you need as a sports clinician. As well as it gave me a range of mentorships from DOs to MDs to surgeons, ATCs, multitude of people. So it was really impactful in my career. I am currently working with the San Diego Surfriders, which is a cricket team, up and coming cricket team. And so that's where it's gotten me so far. I graduated in 24, and sorry, 20, yeah, in 25, I got my sports residency, or SES.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Ruby. I think that's a great story, and I think it's insightful, hopefully, to audience members who, again, I think the traditional path, when I say traditional, just what we experience the most for sports residency is either right out of PT school or a year or two of treating and then to sports residency. And I think it's cool to see that someone has done it in a non-traditional way, and there's programs that accommodate for that. And you can still end in kind of the same position of being a sports credentialed physical therapist treating a high level patient population. So that's awesome. Alex, I want to ask you, your program is the longest here. So can you just speak to me about like pros and cons, benefits of the 2-year program at Brooks, and kind of what you liked about that length of program?
Yeah, it was definitely a little daunting when I was applying there. But I thought the idea at the time of doing a 2-year program where the first year was the orthopedic residency, second year being the sports residency, where you just go back to back while still kind of getting some sports mentorship throughout the whole program, to me sounded the best coming out of school because it would really lay down that orthopedic foundation and then help transition into that more sports specific role. So yes, I did feel it was worth it at the end of the day, though a long 2 years it has been.
And do you feel like it progressively builds? I know you end with that JAG spring ball opportunity, but do you feel like it was like that's such a progressive build to you were feeling so confident by the time you got to that opportunity?
Yeah, it was super nice to kind of see myself evolve throughout the program a little bit, building off just like the general orthopedic curriculum and still like getting some athletes on the side, and then seeing how that transition was the second year when I got more of that like return to sport type curriculum, and just how like my practice evolved throughout the whole thing.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. And then Michael, last but not least in this roundtable, and certainly we'll go another round, try to get a few more questions asked for each program and each panelist. But Michael, you have the opportunity to teach in VCU's PT program, which I know is not something that every residency program has the opportunity to do. So can you speak about that teaching experience and how you thought that that was beneficial to your development?
Sure, yeah. So at VCU, I help TA in the MSK curriculum for first year and second year students. And for me, coming straight out of PT school, initially for me it was a little daunting because I was just on that other side of the room. And so, but I think it really helped solidify, like, obviously my knowledge and understanding of material. Because if I was able to explain it to first and second year students and they were asking me all these different questions, then I felt more confident in my treatment with patients and, my level of practice. But it gave me the opportunity to also create presentations for students. To me, I really enjoy mentorship and teaching. So for me, that was definitely a on VCU's program. So yeah, that's what I would say about the teaching aspect.
Thank you, Michael. And then can you also speak about so I think what's cool also about your program in being in VCU athletics is that your mentor is like directly in the athletic training room as well. So can you speak about the experience of having to make decisions with the Division I athletes and rehab progressions and things like that, but with direct mentorship, which is not always the case. I think it's improving across programs, but speak about that.
Yeah, so with VCU's program, we have to obviously see a lot of the VCU athletes, both in the sports medicine clinic, and in the training room. And so, as in the training room, you're collaborating a lot with strength and conditioning coaches, athletic trainers. But during my residency, our residency director got a position with full time with athletics as part of the sports medicine staff. Um, and so, well, sorry, not full-time position. He's in the training room part of the week. And so that really in during residency really helped me, I think, paint a picture of what a PT as part of a sports medicine staff really looks like, and helped in my comfort in making return to sport decisions because there were a lot of mentorship sessions, formal and informal, that helped me feel more confident in what was the best practice to provide for the athletes that were in the training room. But then it's the same thing on the sports medicine side in the clinic, where a lot of the longer term rehabs, whether it's VCU athletes, or surrounding university and high school athletes will come in. And so it's kind of the same thing where you have the formal and informal mentoring, um, sessions with the mentors in the program, and they kind of help guide you through that whole process.
That's great. Thank you so much, Michael. Ryan, I wanted to ask you at HSS, I know there's a lot of people on here who have a lot of co-residents or other disciplines within their entity, but can you just speak about the experience in interacting with your co-residents, with the other specialties, and what was that like, and how did that enhance your experience?
Yeah, so I don't know if I said it previously, but at HSS there's a sports residency and an orthopedic residency going on at the same time. The orthopedic residency is a little different. Theirs is also a year. Probably should have said. Our residencies are a little different. They run from January to January. I think a lot of people in here kind of run from that like July to August. So they start the new year, so I think it's a little bit different timing. But I think it was really good for studying for the SCS, where we wrapped up in January, had a few months to kind of, settle down from all the demands of residency, to help study for that. But from the aspect of working with the other sports resident, we were constantly, communicating back and forth. We collaborated on a few different projects or presentations. Um, we didn't do like all of our on-field coverage together. I was out at the United States Merchant Marine Academy, which is a Division III school out on Long Island. So it's a service academy. So the rigors and demands of the student athletes are a little bit different because it's kind of like your typical. I describe it as like a Division III, either Army or Navy, if people are familiar with that. Where the other residence up at Westchester was up with Iona College, which is a small Division I school, but basketball was his main coverage. I was mostly, I was with football. We did a lot of New York City high school football games together. We weren't treating in the clinic every single day, but we did have different site visits where I would go up to Westchester a few times a year for different lectures, a few doctor observations up there. The other resident would come down to Manhattan more often than not, because that's obviously the main hub of HSS. That's where he did all of his OR hours. Whenever he would come, they try to organize it so we got most of our lectures or like observation hours during that time. It was nice to have the orthopedic residents as well. That was a different something I wasn't really anticipating at first. They were kind of in our clinic for about 4 months because they do 3 different rotations for the year. So it was good to have them to collaborate off of. Also, not being the only resident in the entire clinic, it was kind of nice to have someone that kind of understood what you were going through. But their residency was a little bit different, in a sense of it's a lot more clinical based, but they're working a little bit more, especially from like your spinal conditions. I noticed that was one big thing with HSS, very, very big spine hospital. So got to learn a lot through them as well. And we did kind of have a few lectures together. It wasn't kind of always ortho and sports together, but the ones we did, we got to collaborate, which was really cool. So getting a different kind of look into that was really interesting.
Thank you, Ryan. Ruby, can you talk a little bit more about the mentorship within EMI? Are you finding a mentor based on where you're geographically located? Are they providing you mentorship? Is it virtual? Is it in person? Can you just speak about that at all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's hybrid. The program is hybrid. So there's a certain part of the program that you do in-house, and then you meet for labs and things like that throughout the year. You know, hands-on learning and everything like that. And you meet a lot of the orthopedic residents as well. If you're doing the sports physical therapy program, you'll also be working with orthopedic as well in different classes that you're taking through hybrid. In terms of mentorship, for me, I found my own mentors because there was no specific mentors in San Diego proper. I was lucky enough to work with MiraCosta College Athletics, and the head trainer, Tony, is amazing. He welcomed me in, and I'm still working with them. I'm still helping teach the grad students that come in and rotate from CBU and Point Loma, different places out here that have good and various athletic training programs. So I found the mentorship myself, but I also had mentorships throughout the US as well. So I had some mentorship through Loyola in Chicago. I had some mentorship out here in UC San Diego. I had some mentorship in Texas as well. I did a week at Frisco, a star of Frisco prior. So it was really, I think with Evidence in Motion, it gives you the capacity to be independent. I have my own concierge sports business on the side, so I was able to have that as well. So creating those little pockets of connections was huge for me, and you learned so much from all these people, and they're so easily accessible. So the mentorship was amazing, even though for me specifically, I had to find the mentorship here.
Thank you, Ruby. All right, so we're gonna also, I want to just say thank you to the panelists. You guys have been awesome in the chat. This is blowing up, but you guys are doing a great job answering questions. Thank you, audience members, for asking the questions. We are going to start ripping Q&A right now. So I'm just going to pass the ball to you guys as panelists. We'll start with the first one. I feel like everyone wants to know. Can panelists raise your hand if you are also an athletic trainer? Jessica. Just one. The number shrinks every single year. Shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. Jessica, why don't you take it? Talk about the benefits of being an athletic trainer, doing a sports residency program, but also talk about why it's obviously not a necessity, especially at this point in time with the athletic training going to an MSAT program a few years ago and it becoming a very challenging educational endeavor to achieve both degrees.
Definitely. So I was lucky enough to get my bachelor's in athletic training. I kind of hit that trend right before we switched over to a master's. So that was really helpful and kind of beneficial in my decision to be dual certified. For me, I kind of always knew sports was the route I was going to go and had thought about a residency going into PT school. I think ultimately the biggest thing that I got out of it, I kind of talked about in the chat, was I hadn't had a ton of experience working with physical therapists in the athletic setting when I was getting my athletic training degree. So really getting to see how a PT can be utilized in athletics, how it can work with athletic trainers, with all of the other staff interprofessionally to get the most out of your rehabs and really make it the best experience for all athletes. I do think that not having done a residency would have been completely fine from like a knowledge standpoint. Like I would have learned and grew a lot within a career as well. But having the opportunity to really get to learn with a director of rehab and really understand how a physical therapist can bring so much to an athletic setting and complement athletic training was the biggest thing that I got out of it. By no means is it necessary, obviously. I think specifically, it was meant to help kind of bridge this gap too for PTs trying to get into athletics that don't have the ATC. So I think residencies are a great thing from that aspect as well. But for me, it just made sense given the timeline of everything.
Awesome. Thank you for that answer, Jessica. We've had some questions about mentorship structures. So Marcus, just real quick, how many different mentors did you have throughout your program? I'll ask a couple different people, but different mentors, both formal and informal within the program.
Okay, formally I had about 6 mentors. We would meet at least once a week they'd probably be there for half of my clinical day. And then we'd have some like Q&A time before and after the actual clinic time, just to, again, review what we're going to do. And again, afterward, what went well, what could have gone better. And then again, throughout the day in the clinics, I worked at a lot of already OCS, SES specialists. So I was always bouncing ideas off of the other people that I worked with on a daily basis, because all of them had a ton more knowledge than me. So I always felt like I had someone to reach out to very close by on a daily basis.
Very cool. Thank you. Nina, can you talk about the benefit of like multiple mentors and just mentorship style, and how it's almost like learning style, right? Like your learning style has to match their mentor style. It might not always match, but the benefits of being able to have a breadth of mentors throughout the.
Yeah, so the way our program is set up at Midwest Orthopedics, we also have several mentors. So I think probably 6 or 7 different mentors that are either SCS or OCS certified. So we started with kind of going through that rotation one time, and then we ended up kind of doubling down, going through everyone again. So I think it gave a really great perspective just to get different clinical reasoning, clinical pearls, different lenses from each clinician. I think that was helpful, not only in the beginning, honestly, just to get to know people in the clinic and everyone's treatment style, but also just to learn what everyone's niche kind of body regions were, what they learned from their residency. Because I think every single one of my mentors is also residency trained as well. So I found it really helpful, again, to have a mixture of perspectives and also different certifications. And then they're also super receptive. In our program, we have a meeting at the beginning of each month, because we switch mentors monthly, to talk about like our goals for the month, what our mentors' goals are for us, and then how we want our feedback and that kind of stuff. So we're very communicative about kind of our preferences, and that way we can kind of find the best match possible. So I found that with really everyone, we were able to find a good learning style, a good balance, and have a really great experience with everyone.
Great, thank you. Did anyone, I mean, I know people did on this, but can one of the panelists just raise their hand and speak briefly about their experience with the match process? Did none of you participate in the match process? Parker, go.
No, I shook my head no.
No, Kaylee, go. Can you just so the audience members know what the match process is?
So I think most of us probably on this call participated in like the trial process, if I had to guess. But seeing from this perspective, as I was kind of involved in like our residence this upcoming year, essentially the whole goal of the match process is very similar to like med school, where it's like you're ranking your program and they are also ranking you, and the whole goal is that there's an algorithm to like where you are matched to that program. So instead, in the past, they've kind of had it where the residencies can call you day of and be like, hey, we want you to do the program. And then you can get another call from a program that's like, hey, we actually want you to do our program. And so it's kind of this whole funnel of like, oh gosh, like they called me, they didn't call me, what's going on? Versus the match is just trying, I guess, essentially to like speed up that process and make it more of like a definite thing versus bouncing around, calling, things like that. But for our trial that we were all a part of, essentially we still ranked ours and they ranked us as well. And I think they were just kind of figuring out the algorithm that they were wanting to do for next classes.
Awesome. Thank you, Kaylee. That was helpful. I'm going to put the video in the chat again. So this video should bring you to a 4 to 5 minute video for audience members. just discussing what the match process is, as the match process has formalized over the last few years. Not every program participates in the match process, but a majority of the programs do. I want to ask Alex if you can speak a little bit to, or really anyone. Alex, why don't you start and we can pass the ball a little bit, but the job application process and like getting a job after residency, what was that like? Did you stay internal to your organization? Did you look externally? How helpful was your program in trying to help you pursue that professional endeavor?
Oh man, maybe I am a good person to talk about this. I actually just moved. So I was initially planning on staying with my company at the sports clinic that we have. My wife recently took a job somewhere else, so I'm currently looking around. But no, my residency has been very helpful in helping me identify resources, make connections to people, like reach out to individuals in the area that I just moved to in Tampa. So maybe that's helpful, maybe that's not. It definitely has made it easier to find people looking for someone like to hire a PT with the residency background though.
I think that was great. This is kind of a personal question, so I'll leave it to a panelist raising their hand, but does anyone want to speak to the finances or their finances in their decision-making process for residency? Because obviously there is their financial implications for residency most of the time. Ryan, yeah, why don't you take it?
Well, I could speak a little bit. So, fortunately, I guess my situation might have been a little bit different where I worked for a few years out of school before I took the residency with HSS. The way HSS does it, they offer you 75% of what a typical starting salary would be for a physical therapist. Now, that does factor into your experience. They do kind of, help you out a little bit if you've been out for a little while, things along that nature. But for me personally, it was nice because HSS does pay well, relatively speaking from a PT standpoint, to where I didn't really need to take a significant pay cut to leave my old job to start the residency. And I kind of understood that it was a year process. I think it's important to invest in yourself. I kind of looked at it that way from a limited standpoint from your salary, but I think in the long term it does kind of pay dividends down the road. But that's just kind of my own personal experience. I think it was well worth the investment of taking maybe a small salary role, because the amount of information that you acquire during a residency, I think is, you're going to have to pay a lot of money to find that somewhere, especially at a place like HSS where you have access to these world-class surgeons. You get to sit in on, lectures every week, conferences, they call it Sports Core every Thursday morning, where these top surgeons kind of each present on a different case or body part, whatever, it is each week. And you get to take in a lot. And I think it's obviously finances are extremely important. Everyone's situation is different. But I think if you look at it as an investment in yourself and in your future for your own practice, you'll be able to kind of, see it a little differently.
I think that's great, Ryan. Kobe, can you speak a little bit about some of those financial things that aren't just your salary, but like what are the other things that your program specifically or other programs you've heard of offer the residents that are kind of like those investment things like Ryan talked about, where like you're gaining maybe not in financial gain, but in other opportunities or experiences like conferences being covered or things like
Yeah, very similar. I think for OSU, we get paid 75% of what a quote unquote full-time therapist would make. So that's really good. We have full benefits and vacation and things like that are there. But we get CSM, travel, a stipend, and just rooming all covered. That's not even a part of like our continuing education fund. So any Ohio State conference is kind of free to us. We have access to that, and we have the opportunity to go to other conferences as well. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we get $550 for Con Ed every year, so that's pretty good. Like last year, we went to the Elite Football Rehab Conference, which was great to, network and things like that. So, um, that's a good thing. And then just another small thing that OSU provides is called like a lifestyle spending account. So they just give us $125 per quarter to spend on whatever we want. That's activity related. that can go towards like a watch, shoes, clothes, things like that. So there's small little perks everywhere that you can kind of get through us.
Thank you, Kobe. Another one for all the panelists here. Can we just raise hands? Anyone do a pro sports rotation during PT school? Because that was a question. Kaylee. That's it. Okay, so for our audience members, one of the 10 did a pro sports rotation. Parker, can you speak about, I think with your experience, like really integrated into the D1 athletics, can you speak about any pressures that you received, like from a return to sport or like a high level sports standpoint, pressures from coaches, pressures from performance staff, anything like that? Or if you didn't have any of those experiences, maybe why did you not have any experiences like that? Like why did the organization run so well that there was no aggressive pressure?
Yeah, so I think for the most part, there really wasn't any pressure on me. And being kind of my first year out and being the resident, a lot of that fell on the kind of athletic trainers where the coaches would have more of contact directly with the kind of like head football athletic trainer or the head athletic trainer of the sport. With our kind of long-term rehabs, a lot of times, if you can just provide really good objective evidence on why the athlete isn't ready to return, um, whether it's strength or this or that. A lot of times everybody can kind of respect that. So a lot of times, like in my cases, if anybody was kind of on the fence, and we were testing them, and I would just kind of relay that message to the athletic trainer, they would pretty much then they would be on my side and be like, hey, tell the coach, like, hey, they're just not quite ready, they need a little more time. So no like big pressures. Didn't really have any true contact with admin, which I think was helpful kind of in my process.
Cool, Parker. Yeah, I think obviously it's pie in the sky at times. There's certainly moments where like there's a lot of pressure in those high stakes environment, Division One and pro, but I think with objective information that you can try to bolster your argument. And again, our number one priority as healthcare providers is always the safety and the well-being of the athletes and of the patients. So remembering that as paramount, I think can be helpful when that pressure kind of does mount and build. But it certainly can. Let's see. We've got about 5 minutes left. So if anyone wants to fire off their last few questions here in the chat, I want to ask you all though, rapid fire, how many hours a week did you work approximately in residency? I'm just going to fire it off here. Kaylee, how many hours a week did you work approximately?
I'll say during football season, probably like 70 to 80. Outside of football season, it dialed back maybe 60 or so.
Michael?
So VCU doesn't have football. So in terms of those hours, we didn't have that, but I would probably go within like that 50 to 60 range probably.
Marcus?
Yeah, I would say probably again 50 to 60.
Ryan?
I think 50 to 60 is a realistic amount. Football season as well for me was definitely a little bit more, so probably like 60 to 70 in that range.
And Nina?
I'm also going to go with right around 50 to 60, depending on time of year.
Anyone have anything different to say? Alex, Parker, Jessica, Kobe, Ruby? Ruby?
So because I had a full-time job, I actually easily went to 90, 100 sometimes. It was ridiculous.
Now, do you need to have a full-time job to do the EMI program?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you do. You need to have a full-time job and a placement in sports. Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. Yeah, I feel like that's a common question we get, 50, 60, a little bit more during football season. Anyone want to talk about their work-life balance during residency? Because I think that's another question that we often get, like, how do you survive? But you guys are all living here to say that you did survive. Ruby, why don't you start and we'll pass it on to someone else as well. Speak briefly.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So for me, it was daunting because I had a 17-year-old going to college, ready to do interviews and look at colleges, and then a 13-year-old who's a brilliant robotics kid. So juggling that part of momhood and my own business and then doing the residency was a little harder. But the nice thing was with EIM, I was able to take my work with me wherever I went. So even though it sounds daunting, the 90 hours or whatever, it was actually, I could just seamlessly put it in, except for like hands-on menu coverage hours, things like that I had to actually be present for.
Oop, I was muted. Anyone else want to speak to that quickly? Just kind of the work-life balance. Jessica, Marcus?
Oh yeah, real quick. All I was gonna say was like, uh, just like Ruby said, like she's got a very busy life, but all of us have lives in some regard, more than just like PT and sports PT, and like do those things. Don't neglect the things that you love and enjoy. Like you still are a human being. Like live your life. It's gonna be okay. There's always gonna be time to study and work at this, but like make sure you take care of your mental as well.
Can I add something, Jack?
Yes, please.
So the funniest thing was in my final, I had to do a case presentation with the faculty, my mentors, um, co-residents, and I was actually in Italy the entire time that I was writing up and doing these calls and everything like that. So it was really nice to do a presentation from like a random place during vacation, during spring break with my kids, still having a life, and I think that was a very relevant um, statement right there, Marcus, because you got to live life, you got to enjoy it.
Jessica, you look like you were going to unmute yourself, and then Ryan has his raised hand. Let's go quick to Jessica first.
Yeah, I have a little bit different take. I totally agree. I think it's important to stay true to yourself and everything that you enjoy and love to stay sane. But I also think that kind of going into it, you're knowing you're committing a lot of hours and a lot of time, and that's the choice you're willing to make if it fits for you and your lifestyle. So I think ultimately being prepared to potentially have to give and take here for your career and your future and um, residency is something that you kind of have to accept and know going into it. And then for me, a big part of kind of staying sane and really getting to prioritize myself was becoming friends with my coworkers and having a really good relationship with some of the athletic trainers I worked with. There were a lot of young people at Miami and we had a blast and like it was work, but I think it made it a lot more manageable to have like that support within those I was with every day too.
Ryan?
I just wanted to like quickly share. I saw a lot of questions in the chat just about like what you can do to stand out from a application standpoint. I think the biggest thing that I've learned is that these residencies want to see your commitment to sports, outside of PT school. Like I think doing a clinical rotation is great, but I think even like reaching out to a local athletic training room, whether that's a high school, college, strength and conditioning, weight room, things like that, observation hours. Being a coach, like personally, I was a lacrosse coach for about 4 or 5 years as well on the side in high school. So they just want to see your commitment to working in a sports environment. Sports residency is very different from an orthopedic residency. You're on the field, there's a lot going on. You need to be able to make decisions very quickly. They just want to be able to see that you are committed to the lifestyle that is working in a sports setting. It's very different than a clinical lifestyle. And I think it is important as well to have some experience on a sideline, in a weight room, in an athletic training room prior to doing a sports residency, just so you have an idea of like kind of what's expected of you, like the fast-paced environment that's going on. And to also just learn a little bit and see if this is really what you want to do, because it is a big commitment. It's a lot of time, for the year plus, however long your residency is. You need to be able that make sure that you are committed to being in a sports setting.
Ryan, that was a great finish. I love that. We'll put a period on it there. And I want to be timely, 10 o'clock on the dot. So everyone, a couple wrapping up things here. This has been recorded. This will be uploaded into the Learning Center on the AASPT website. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I'll be sharing contact info of all the panelists, names, emails, and programs. I'll also share my contact info and Abby's contact info. Abby is the residency program director at Midwest Rush Orthopedics. So you can ask her specific questions about their program as well. And feel free to reach out to us. And thank you guys for all joining. And thank you to the panelists for taking your time this evening. I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves. Have a great evening.
Thanks, Jack.